Hey, what's up, comrades? Hope everyone's doing great. So last week we talked about the worst shit that I involved myself with, which mostly wasn't the worst. But now we're going to talk about the best, the things that I enjoyed the most, and the things that, had left the most lasting impression, or that I truly enjoyed the most. And again, we're going to do this. There's going to be a top five in order from 5 to number 1. And I'm only doing things that I have reviewed this year, with one exception that we'll get to. And so things that I have played that I didn't put videos up for on these channels will not be discussed until maybe next year, if they are the best of that year or whatnot, because there's plenty of things I've played that the videos are scheduled out already into March and May. Dun dun dun! All right, so the fifth best thing I've involved myself with this year is the Dresden Files. So I read the first 2 books, Stormfront and Full Moon, and they were pretty good. So this is the Dresden stuff. I read a lot of books constantly, and the Dresden Files are the best things that I read all year. So I read some Anne Rice mummy stuff. I read the selection. I read several different light novel series, or at least the audiobook versions that I could find, like Tanya the Evil and all that good stuff. But definitely the Dresden Files struck me the most, and it's the thing I think about the most. And I have several more to read. It's just one of those things where I have the actual books, and sadly I just don't have time to sit down and read a book per se. That's why the audiobook thing is such a revelation to me, and it's been that way for most of my life, to be completely honest. But the books I've read have been super enjoyable, and I've been able to cruise through them. It's just like having to start another one, because at least with Full Moon, when I was reading it, I read like the first 4 or 5 chapters, and then I just didn't have time to read it because I have so much other stuff going on. And then I finally just forced myself like a couple days to just like knock it out, and it was super good, and it's super enjoyable, and I hope I can get to some of the rest of them in 2025. But the thing I like about Dresden Files, it's just good. It's just quality. Dresden is a fantastic character who's got nuance, and he's got weaknesses and strengths, and he has confidence, but he also has fears. He has a great cast of like side characters, from like Murphy to the hot Latina girl that he hooks up with, to just like the random assortment of like bullshit monsters and creatures that fill out his cast. And both books are just extremely well written and have enjoyable plots and are interesting and involve just like some twist and turn that you don't necessarily see coming. And even if you do, it's still like, it's a fun ride. Like, Dresden is just a fantastic character, and I can see why this guy's written like so many books, and it's kind of lasted. They even tried making a TV show, which I remember watching and being like unimpressed with. But I feel like they miscast. They cast like an older guy, or an older looking guy, when I feel like Dresden he's like a wiry, strong dude who's younger with long hair, and this guy was like bald too, I think. I don't know, maybe I'm misunderstanding what he's supposed to be looking like, but it was definitely not what I saw there. So highly recommend anyone who's interested in any kind of like, what do they call this, like realistic magic or whatever. It's kind of like a Harry Potter world where there's like a hidden world of magic, but it's like the adult version. And it's not adult, is it? I mean, like this guy, like he definitely fucks, but it's like fade to black, and there's definitely violence, but it's not over the top. Like it's like I would give this to like my preteen son to be like, hey, this is pretty good, you should read this, because it's just like a good fun romp. It's very like 90s aesthetic, which is great, because that's like I was like a teenager in the 90s, and so a lot of that just like strikes home with me as being like, oh yeah, I remember that fucking thing. I remember flip phones and shit, right? And just like everything makes sense in this world. It's simple, it's excellent. Like it's just like a cozy. It's very cozy to just like read and enjoy the world, and like know that like Dresden's gonna be fine. But you still feel like the stakes and everything. So highly recommend the Dresden File books, especially Stormfront. I liked a lot. Full Moon was slightly less good, but we're talking like, I would say like Stormfront is like a 9.5 or 9 in that area, and Full Moon is like an 8.5 to 9. Like it's just slightly not as great, but it's still great. So excellent all around. Number 4 is Dr. Stone. Dr. Stone is the best thing I watched this year, and we're just talking about season 3. I don't know if I watched the other seasons. I may have this year, but I'm thinking specifically of season 3. The whole thing is excellent. Dr. Stone is a shonen anime that is based around science, and as some of the science stuff, I'm like, yeah, that's true. And other stuff I looked up and I was like, oh shit, that is true. So I feel like they're not just like making up bullshit anime science, if you know what I mean, or like magic. Like it seems, I haven't gone through every single thing Dr. Stone has come up with, all his schemes and all his like justifications and litany of stuff. But it seems like thus far, everything that they bring up like was at least like Googled and was like, yeah, that's a thing you could do, possibly. Like, hypothetically, that does make sense. And so it's fun. It's excellent. It's still got the shonen where it's like, oh, we got to battle these guys and they're much stronger than us. But instead of being like, we got to level up or power up, it's like, we do got to power up with science. And so they use technology, but it's very rudimentary technology, because the whole thing takes place in like 3,000 years in the future when everyone's been turned to stone, and like we're back in like the caveman days. And it's just like, the world is so good. And the world, the characters are so good. The world is very like, whatever. It's like caveman world. So there's not really that much interesting stuff about it, but the characters are so good and so excellent. The villains are good. And it's the super shonen where it's like the first bad guy, the first villain, Magma, he seems like a real mean asshole. How are we going to beat this guy? And they beat him, and then he's a friend. And the next guy, Tsukasa, is like, oh man, there's no way we can beat this guy. He's super strong. And then they beat him finally using science, and then he's a friend. And it's that kind of shit. It's so good. The third season just like ramps it up. It's like, so we get introduced to, I can't remember his name, but the Pirate King guy. Oh, he's fantastic. And every character brings something, and it's a huge cast. And they're all excellent. They're all super fun. And it's all held together by Senku and Gohaku, I think is her name, the two main characters essentially, who are just like perfect in every possible way. Like, and perfect, not like Mary Sue perfect, but perfect isn't just like, they're so good. The way their characters act and do things, and it's just like, it's fun, and the whole thing is just fun. It's fun. It's a fun romp. I love shonen anime, but this is like peak, man. Like, and I own like all the manga for like Fairy Tail and like Seven Deadly Sins, and I like a bunch of Dragon Ball and shit. And like, I love this shit. But this is like, it's almost like a whole other level. It reminds me of, there's a cooking show that is like a shonen anime, which is it's not nearly as peak as this or even the other stuff, but it's like, I like how they're taking this like concept of like leveling up and like friendship is magic and just like being tough and growing and overcoming anything with like the power of friendship and your wits and your strength and like helping others, and just like they're pushing it out to like all these other spheres. And it's really refreshing when there's so much like of this isekai bullshit that like we read. And there's some really good isekai like Slime Boy and Is It Okay to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, which is just so good as well. But there's a lot of shit, which includes Sword Art Online, which is terrible, which it's like iffy isekai. But anyway, but yeah, Dr. Stone is highly recommended. If you like anime, if you just like fun times, if you just want to be like, yes, like you're watching Saturday morning cartoons, everything about it is so good. The music is fantastic. And like literally I was watching it one day in like traffic because my kids were like losing it, and both my like 3-year-old and my 5-year-old daughter were like enraptured by it, and like it's so good. Just yeah, cannot recommend highly enough. Number 3 on my list is Lies of P, and Lies of P is like the sequel. It's Bloodborne, but I like it better than Bloodborne. I know that's controversial because people get like real diehard fans about Bloodborne so much that I know there's like Reddit groups, there's like stuff online, these social media sites that all they do is make fun of Bloodborne fans because they're so diehard. But I gotta say, like, I like Bloodborne. It was fine. I didn't like it as much as Dark Souls or any of the rest of that stuff, but Lies of P is like, yes, this takes that kind of like that gothic kind of like, not Cthulhu inspired, but kind of like more eldritch horror kind of nature thing. And it doesn't amp it up. It's just like, to me, it makes it more realistic. Like, part of my thing with Bloodborne is it's like, is this trying to be like a fantasy thing or like a horror thing? It's very like a Cthulhu-ish, right? Just like horrible monstrosities and stuff. And I don't know. It was almost too much from Soft. As crazy as that sounds, because I love those games, like the Dark Souls, Elden Ring. I like Bloodborne. Sekiro's alright. It didn't click with me as much. It's too Ninja Gaiden for me. A lot of hot takes. But Lies of P is like, oh yes, I get it. I get why people love Bloodborne, because Lies of P is so good. You play as like Pinocchio, supposedly, and you go through and you meet like the characters from the show, and they all have like humanoid representations and stuff, and it's very grounded, very dark, like very haunting, with like the puppets and like the stone curse and the alchemist. So it's got a lot of that kind of like dark, that Victorian era kind of Cthulhu setting with like unknown monstrosities and stuff like that. But to me, it's like, it's very grounded at the same time. And then it just makes it just flows so well. I feel like it plays like I kind of hated the gun mechanic in Bloodborne, to be completely honest. Like, it took me a while to get, and so that's part of it, right? That's part of me just needing to get good. But even after I got good and I was like cruising through bosses in that game, it was still, I always felt like, I don't know, I don't enjoy this. I just don't feel like they're executing at the level that I would expect. And then Lies of P was just, it was so fluid, and the things you could do, and just like, and again, I'm making comparisons to Bloodborne. I would still consider Bloodborne like a 9 out of 10. I just like Lies of P is even better. Like, it's at that caliber where like the Dark, like when I played Demon Souls the first time, and I was like, what the fuck is this? This is incredible. Or like Elden Ring, or like Dark Souls 2, to be honest, which is my favorite of any Souls style game, to be completely honest. I feel like it's just like, it gets it. It gets why we're here, and it's just like you explore. It's all about the exploration and the discovering things, and like mixing and matching, and just like, hey man, you want to fight that same boss but the next level? Now do it again. Now do it again. Like, fuck you, yeah. I'm on like New Game 8 on like this one particular boss because of fucking bonfire aesthetics. It's so good. Anyway, but I feel like Lies of P like gets it. It gets like, you're using the mechanisms, and I'm not saying FromSoft doesn't. It's just impressive because like I like Cold Vein, I like The Surge, I generally like the Lord of Fallen games, but I feel like the spirit of like this like genre, like Lies of P, New Wiz, I think, this Korean company, God, South Korea's crushing it this year, with me at least, like Solo Leveling, this, something else I'm going to talk about in a little bit, Stellar Blade. It's just like, god damn, dude. Like, and then I look at like Square Enix, man. It used to be my favorite game company. I'm like, wake the fuck up and stop doing stupid bullshit, man. Start making good games again. The fuck is wrong with you people? Anyway, whatever. At least South Koreans are doing something. Anyway, but this, it's just so good. And then the story, man. I don't hate it. I'm not a huge fan of like the esoteric way that like FromSoft tells its stories in like the Souls games or Elden Ring, right? I much prefer, like I in Bloodborne, I feel like, again, it's my one of my issues with it is I almost feel like it takes it to the next level, which is too far, right? Like, I'm already kind of like, I don't like that I have to like look at item descriptions to like understand the world building. I kind of appreciate it. I like that they don't just slap you in the face with stuff. And I feel like Elden Ring does almost like a perfect balance of like, here's the narrative, why you're doing stuff, why you're here, here's what's going on in the world. There's more, but you have to kind of like dig deep to get there, right? I'm totally cool with that. And like Dark Souls 2 and 1 and 3, I feel like Dark Souls games get it. Bloodborne, it's like, I was like looking. Like, I literally had to watch like 10 videos to understand what the fuck was going on in this game. And like, yeah, maybe I'm retarded, fair enough. But I feel like, if anything, I'm like the average consumer. And like, if I don't know what the fuck's going on, that means like most of your audience has no clue what's going on. So, but Lies of P, it's like, I understand exactly what's going on. And like, the same thing, I'm reading like item descriptions, people are talking, stuff people are talking about. I'm looking at like things you pick up, and I'm like, okay, I get what's going on. I get how this world's structured. I get like the story of how things got to this like post-apocalyptic kind of state. And then I understand like the prejudices, and like you interact with one character. I mean, it's just, I feel like it understands the genre and understands what people are looking for, like the exploration part, like the side quests, the interaction with side characters, how you can like fight anybody or not fight anybody. I love how they implement the lie system, because it's like, it's almost like the Paragon system for Mass Effect is what most people are familiar with, but it takes that, and it's not terrible like the Paragon system for Mass Effect, which is kind of just like, it's the same one that Infamous used and stuff, where it's like, are you a good guy or a bad guy? And it's like, I'm nuanced, and they're like, nope, fuck you, you have to choose one. And it takes that away completely, because it's just like, hey, are you human or are you a puppet? And it's like, oh, that's much more interesting to consider, right? Like, and that's what the truth lies, because puppets can't lie. So if you're lying, it like increases your humanity. And it's like, oh my god, damn, dude, this is so good. And again, it's just like the game plays perfectly. Like, it plays well. It's got a bunch of like random bullshit. It has like you can summon spirits or you cannot at most boss fights, except the last one. It's got like thrown items that are actually fucking do something, right? It's like everything in the game does something useful. And whether you want to interact with those systems or not will determine how difficult some of these battles are for you. So you can, it's the in-game, like, create your own difficulty level, which is how all games should implement difficulty settings. Like, do you want to make this harder for you? Then do it. If you don't, then don't, right? Which most of these games do. Most of these kind of like Souls-like games implement their own systems of like, hey, you want easy mode in Dark Souls? Pick up that fucking Zweihander, throw on some heavy armor, and invest a lot in vigor and strength, and you will just clobber your way through the game. You want to make Dark Souls 2? You want to make this game super easy mode? Fucking magic it up, and you will just decimate everything that comes across you. right? It's like there's always ways to do it. Same thing with Elden Ring, unless they patch that up. Just like, hey, you wanna cruise through this game with like a cigarette and a beret, fucking magic it up. Put on that crazy face you get from the fucking academy, and go to town. But if you want to be hard, if you want to go Oinga Boinga and have 2 fucking Game of Thrones swords and had the heaviest armor humanly possible, fucking do it. I did it. You don't believe me? You can find it. Go find my live stream of fucking fighting the elder boss. Pure strength and vitality, and just clobbering this dude with 2 great swords. Like fucking, there you go. It can happen. It took me a while. Like to get it, but I did it, and people online did not believe me at the time. So whatever. Anyway, Lies of P is excellent. Definitely play, even if you're not a big fan of like the Dark Souls games because they're quote unquote too hard and you don't want to get good. Lies of P, and it's not just me. I think besides like the last boss only took me 3 tries or so. Most bosses you can like figure out during the combat. Like they give you kind of like enough space and enough time. You can almost always summon like an assistant to help you. And then there's just so much stuff going on. Like I would say, if you're onboarding and you want to like try out these kind of games, but you just feel like they're too hard, right? Or you're intimidated, try it. Lies of P is one of the easiest, and not easy in a bad way, just like simple. And they're simple, and there's so many ways to turn on quote unquote easy mode just by like using items more often. The kind of setup and build you have will have like, you know, a drastic change in how your ability to like perform excellently. Or you can have fun and just do crazy different builds, right? And use different items and stuff. And it's just like, I'm so excited for that. I think they have a DLC coming, and I heard there's like a sequel also in the mix, but we'll see. But yeah, if this is all this I ever played from these people, like high five to them forever. This is excellent. My second favorite thing of the whole year is Shining Force, the first one. I like this game so much. I literally played it twice in a row. I played the original Sega Genesis version, and then I was like, damn, that was so good. Fuck it, I'm just gonna do it. And then I played like I think it's Game Boy Advance remix they made, which was different enough because it adds like 3 characters and like kind of this like an expanded story, that it was still fun the second time. Like I literally played this game 2 times in a row, and I was never bored. Like I thoroughly enjoyed it. This is like one of the best games ever made, period. If you have not played Shining Force and you like Final Fantasy Tactics or Fire Emblem or any of this stuff, like you can probably find it I think you can play it on your phone. Like, like you can find this Shining Force game a lot of places. And I know some of these like rights holders, like they do weird bullshit. Getting a Sega Genesis emulator working in like the year of our Lord 2024 or the future is like it's like laughably easy. You just got to download I think I use Pico Drive, but there's so many. There's like 5 or 6 Genesis emulators, and then you can get the ROM from like 1,000 different places, and you can just play it on your computer or on your Android or on your iPhone. I'm sure, like you can play this thing anywhere, and it's so good. It's one of the original. It's one of the old school. I don't know the time frame for all this stuff. Fire Emblem might actually be the first, but it's in this time frame of like these kind of tactics games. Like most people are familiar with Fire Emblem or the Final Fantasy Tactics style games. Sega. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but there's a lot of them now. But there's a decent amount back then. I think Rolancer is one of the original ones. It was called something else in America. Anyway. But it's just so good. The characters are bright and they're fun, and the story it's not overly complicated. You're a hero. You're out to kill the Dark Dragon who's trying to come back, and you have Cain, who is like your pseudo. Well, he's the bad guy, and then you find out like stuff about him. I'm not going to spoil here, but you can watch my whole review of both the games. It came out a couple weeks ago. It's like one of the last videos of the 2024, so that's why it gets included on this list. But because I'm playing through all the Shining Force games, starting with that one, or all the Shining games, there's like 22 of them. Anyway, highly recommend it to anybody who likes video games. It's a Sega Genesis game, so it's old as fuck. I mean, I played it when it came out because I'm old as fuck. But even besides the nostalgia, it's just like I don't play games like more than once like in a decade. Like I played this thing twice, and I was like, man, I'd play it again. It's so good. There's so many different characters, so many different ways you could build your party. Like I had 2 totally different parties in both these games, like absolutely different, and they were both fun. They both worked. Like it's just like you can like overpower, you can underlevel. There's like so many options in the way you approach things and go through things. And there's like one bullshit level in both of them with the laser thing that shoots guys over a bridge. But other than that, like there's nothing to complain about. This is like a 9.9. This is a 10. This game is so good. One of the best tactics games, one of the best Sega Genesis games, just one of the best games and one of the best game series ever. That's like lost to time because Shining Force 3 came out in like 99 or something, like over like 25 years ago at this point. But yeah, I mean, and Shining Force 2 builds a lot on Shining Force 1, but I still, Shining Force 1 is just so simple, so straightforward. It's just so good. Like I can't say enough nice things about it. Definitely check it out at some point. Just amazing. And either version, the Sega Genesis version, I think I prefer, just because of nostalgia. But the Game Boy Advance version adds a lot of kind of quality of life stuff. And again, you get a more complete story, I would say. Finally, my game of the year, I actually have not done a video for, so I'm breaking my own rules here. But the reason I am breaking my rules is because I'm going to dedicate Fridays to this game. And the reason why is because it's dun dun dun, Nikke, Goddess of Victory. Yes, it's a fucking Korean gacha game. This is hands down the best thing I have played in fucking years. And you may be like, the fuck is wrong with you? And I would say, the fuck is wrong with you? Go play Nikke, Goddess of Victory. It's literally free. It's so good. And the reason it's good is because everything about it is high quality. Now, yes, it's a fucking gacha game, so you can pay for it, and it highly encourages you to, and it definitely speeds up certain things. At the same time, you don't have to. I know plenty of people who don't spend a cent on this, and they still get through the main story. They still can feel competitive. It gives them something. It gives you something to do where you can look at beautiful, sexy, sensual women killing fucking robots, and if you want, there is skill to the game, because the mechanism of the game is that you get a team of 5, right? If you ever played like a mobile game, you can know where this is going. So you got a team of 5. They all have their different like classes, their different organization, and they all have their different element, right? So you kind of mix and match, and certain enemies are going to be weak, or certain bosses are going to be weak to certain things, but you control them shooting. Like, so they're all lined up in this kind of like formation where you got 3 in the front, 2 in the back, which matters, right? And this is the thing with this gacha game, and I played a lot of gacha games, and this one like stands out just from like a player perspective, is that you can actually win battles by being good at the fucking game. Now there's a point where being good is only going to carry you so far, if you don't have like the right setup or the right team build, or you're just not powerful enough. But I'm pushing some of these levels and some of these towers and some of the same gacha stuff they have in most of these gacha games with a team that is like super under-leveled, because I have like a good setup and I built them a certain way using like the limited amount of resources. And I've spent money on this fucking game because I don't care, because I'm an adult and I have a job. And if I would have spent money on video games, it's going to fucking Nikke right now. So fuck you, Western companies. Fuck you, all game industry, to be completely honest. But except for Shift Up, bless your heart. Oh man, I'm definitely gonna buy V Monroe's porno game when it comes out. But that's because he's amazing and I support him. If you don't follow him, it's he has a couple channels. I think V Monroe is the name of the channel, and then he has one that's God damn, he has a gaming channel. But if you just look up V, like VEE, you should be able to find his shit. But he's the one who turned me on to this, because he was talking about it, and I had the exact same experience where like I'd seen this game, because every then I'm just like bored at work, and so I'm like, I like having like a gacha game or something on my phone, just something to fucking do, you know, while I'm like on the pot or whatever, or I'm like waiting for traffic or something. Anyway, and he was like, oh, I play this game because people recommended it to me because it's got super hot waifus, which it does. Absolutely. And it's got my favorite waifu of all time, Naga, who's like a Latin chick who I literally got into an hour-long discussion with somebody on Discord about last night, because he's like, no, she's Israeli. And then we like came to the conclusion that like, well, she could be Hispanic Israeli, because she's definitely Hispanic. And he's pretty convinced she's Israeli, but I have some thoughts about that. Anyway, I'll get more into that another time, as I'm going to do character videos too. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. So the thing that really sold me on this game, besides like it's beautiful, there's actual gameplay, there's a lot of strategy in how you build your teams and how you work through things, and is the story. And the story is fucking incredible. Like, it's like shocking. Like, I laugh every time I think about it. It's like the best story I've seen in a video game made after like 2010 in the last several years is from this fucking game. like, what the fuck? It's from this gacha game. Like it pulls you in, and it's like I'm so vested in like these characters and what's going on. And then they have these like, it's a gacha game. So again, if you're not familiar, they have like every month they'll have like a story or two that are like side stories, and you read through these stories, and some of them are just kind of dumb fun, but they're so well written, and they introduce new characters you can spend money on to get, obviously, or like gems or whatever. But even like the dumb fun ones that are just they're fun, right? They're just like quaint stories. There's one recently about this chick named Flora who wants to like preserve this garden in this like post-apocalyptic world. Almost think like Evangelion, where you have like the Ark, which is where all the humans live after the robots invaded from space and like killed everybody and like made the surface uninhabitable. They built this underground world, and she just has like a garden with real flowers. And then like her leader of her faction, essentially, like because there's three main companies that make Nikkeis, and is like, we're getting rid of this, it's a waste of money. And so we have to go with her as the commander, who's like the point perspective character, to find a special flower that has special properties that can be used to like help with healing. And then we do like a garden party and invite everyone from the Ark to come, and then they come, and everyone's like super impressed. And then so we get like the corporate, the CEO, to be like, all right, you can keep the garden, fuck you. And it's just it's very sweet. And then it's just you know what I mean? But it's like she interacts with other characters who are all good, or they're all well developed, and it brings character. You know, there's so many of these fucking Nikkeis. There's I don't think there's 100, but there's like 50 or more easily. And they're just all so good, and they all have certain characteristics, and like there's so many ways to interact with them. But and that's all the side stories. The side stories are fantastic. But the main story is like, oh my gosh, dude, there's like so many twists and turns and things going on. And then they have like the anniversary arc, which is like, because this takes place like 100 years or something after they call them the Raptures. The bad guys have invaded the Earth. And so then we get like the original Nikkeis that were created. And I'll go into more about that later. But they then there's the Pilgrims, so they're goddess squad, right? Nikke, goddess of victory. That's where that comes from. But then there's like a lot of mysteries about what happened, because the records were destroyed, and like people were like, because people were just trying to fucking survive and build this Ark and get off the planet. And then there was like a lot of like, well, something happened, and then there's like the heretics who are Nikkeis that get corrupted by the Rapture Queen, and like there's whole things with them, and it's just like there's so much shit going on, and there's so much like, oh my gosh, and stuff comes out of nowhere, and it's paced so well in the game because you earn these story sessions as you like play through the levels and, you know, defeat things. And sometimes you gotta wait a while to like level up, and it's like hard because it's like, man, I want to see where this fucking goes because I'm so into it. So it's like the thing that motivates me to log on every day to like, you know, do the daily quests so I can get better gear and stuff is to find out what happens next in the story. Like it has nothing, the dopamine hit has nothing to do with it, right? When you're like, oh yeah, hell yeah, I beat that boss. That's there too, by the way. A better dopamine hit than a lot of these fucking AAA games, I gotta say. It's kind of the same dopamine hit because it's like you spend weeks powering up your guys and re-strategizing and like leveling up their gear and like doing all this stuff, right? Especially if you're free to play, which you can easily be. And then you finally beat this fucking boss that stopped you from getting the story, and you get the same dopamine hit that you're getting when you like struggle against like I was talking to Liza P earlier, like one of their bosses, and you finally beat him, and you're like, yes, and you just feel so relieved and like, oh, thank God, that was awesome, you know? And it's a fucking gacha game. I can't emphasize this enough. Like, it blows my mind that I'm so invested in this game. Like, it's so fucking good. And yeah, so like I said, starting in a week or two, I'm going to start just going through the story. And I haven't decided exactly what I'm going to do at this point. But I'm kind of thinking I'm going to go through the main story, and then periodically I will introduce character stories, because they all have their own stories that you can earn once you purchase them. Once the Nikkeis join like your team, you can like invest time in them and like talk to them so that they kind of level up their story, and then you can get their like side stories, which are always like very detailed and very interesting, a lot of good stuff. And then they'll also oftentimes have like these monthly like storylines, like side stories dedicated to them, right? Or they'll just be these monthly stories that are like, there's like the short one, and then there's the long one, and then there's the anniversary events, which the anniversary events are like part of the main story. And so there's so much fucking good stuff, and it's like a visual novel the way it's told, right? But it's like, it's so good, and I love visual novels anyway, so that's not a hard sell for me whatsoever. But yeah, Nika Goddess of Victory, the best game that I played this year. And so much so that I am now going to start doing lore videos, or like whatever you want to call them, my story. If you watch my stuff, it's like that. Like I'm just going to tell you a story and then chat about it while I do it. But those will start coming up on Fridays. That's what my Friday's now going to be. Yeah, cool. Well, go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I will catch you guys later.